March 8, 1983. Johnny Carson was mid-monologue when he saw her, a 10-year-old girl in the front row, drowning in tears, wearing a Tonight Show t-shirt 5 sizes too big. Her mother was quietly leaving with her, a production assistant guiding them toward the exit. Johnny stopped talking, mid-sentence, mid-joke, just stopped. The audience went silent. Ed McMahon stood up, confused, and Johnny Carson did something he'd never done in 21 years of hosting The Tonight Show. He walked off his mark, headed straight into the audience, knelt down in front of the little girl, and asked one question: "What's your name, sweetheart?" Her answer would turn a comedy show into the most emotional moment in Tonight Show history. Because Emily Harper's father had called a radio station 300 times to win those tickets. And 3 weeks ago, he died in a car accident without ever getting to use them. It was a Tuesday night at NBC Studio One in Burbank. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and anticipation. Studio lights bathed the stage in warm gold. 300 people sat packed in rows, waiting for the magic to start. The Tonight Show was taping, and Johnny was doing what he'd done 11,000 times before, making America laugh. The monologue was going perfectly. The jokes were landing. Doc Severinsen's band hit every cue. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned, except for the little girl in the front row who couldn't stop crying. Emily Harper was 10 years old. 3 weeks ago, her entire world had collapsed. Her father, Robert Harper, had been killed in a car accident on February 15th. A driver ran a red light and hit Robert's car. He died at the scene. He was 36 years old. Robert Harper had been the biggest Johnny Carson fan Emily had ever known. He never missed an episode. He'd quote Johnny's jokes at work. He'd practice Johnny's golf swing in their backyard. 5 months before the accident, Robert had entered a radio contest and called in 300 times over 2 days to win tickets to a Tonight Show taping. When he finally won, he'd screamed so loud that Emily came running from her room. "We're going to see Johnny," Robert had shouted, picking Emily up and spinning her. "Front row tickets, you and me, kiddo." Emily had counted down the days. She'd made a paper chain with her father, 1 link for each day until the taping. Every morning at breakfast, they'd tear off 1 link together. Then, February 15th happened. The paper chain was still hanging in Emily's room, 11 links remaining, when the police came to the door. Before we go deeper into what happened when Johnny saw Emily crying, when he stopped his monologue and made a choice that would define who he really was, if you're here because you remember when Johnny Carson could turn entertainment into healing, subscribe to Johnny Carson Legacy Stories. We're uncovering the moments when legends stopped performing and started saving lives. Hit that bell. After the funeral, Emily's mother, Linda, didn't know what to do with the tickets. They were non-transferable, one specifically in Robert's name, but throwing them away seemed wrong. Emily made the decision. "I want to go, Mom. Dad would want us to go." "Honey, it might be too sad." "I know it'll be sad, but Dad called in 300 times. If we don't go, it's like his happiness dies too. I want to keep it alive." Linda looked at her 10-year-old daughter, this small person who'd just lost her father and was somehow thinking more clearly than the adults, and made a decision. They would go. The night of the taping, Emily insisted on wearing her father's Tonight Show t-shirt. It was a men's large, comically oversized, hanging down to her knees. But it smelled like her dad. She also brought her father's winning radio contest letter, kept in her pocket like a talisman, proof that her dad was supposed to be here. When they arrived at NBC Studios, Emily was okay. Nervous, sad, but okay. Then the show started. The warm-up comedian told jokes. The audience laughed. Doc Severinsen and the band played the theme. Ed McMahon did his introduction. And then Johnny Carson walked through the curtain. The reality crashed over Emily like a wave. Dad should be here. Dad should be squeezing my hand right now. Dad should be laughing at the jokes. Instead, there was an empty space beside her where he should have been. Emily started crying. Not quiet tears. Deep, body-shaking sobs of genuine grief. She couldn't stop. Linda pulled her close. "It's okay, baby. We can leave if you want." But Emily didn't want to leave. Leaving would mean admitting that Dad's dream died with him. She shook her head, but she couldn't stop crying. The show continued. Johnny did his monologue. The audience laughed, and Emily cried through all of it. By the time Johnny finished his monologue, Linda made a decision. They needed to go. She caught the eye of a production assistant. "I'm sorry. My daughter, her father just died. These were his tickets. I think we need to leave." The production assistant nodded sympathetically, starting to guide them toward the exit. That's when Johnny saw them. He'd been walking back to his desk when something caught his attention. Movement in the front row, a production assistant leading people out, a little girl in an oversized Tonight Show shirt crying like her heart was breaking. Johnny stopped walking. The director spoke into Johnny's earpiece. "Johnny, you're on in 5 seconds." But Johnny wasn't listening. He was watching the little girl being led away. The shirt she was wearing, too big. The way she was looking back at the stage, like she wanted to stay, but couldn't. What Johnny did next wasn't in the script, and it wasn't approved. He walked off his mark and headed toward the front row. Ed stood up. Doc stopped conducting. The audience murmured. Cameras swiveled, unsure where to point. Johnny was already there, kneeling down in front of the Harper family. "Wait," Johnny said quietly. "Don't take them out yet." The production assistant froze. Linda stared at Johnny Carson, her husband's hero, now inches away. Johnny looked at Emily. She'd stopped crying from sheer shock. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Johnny asked gently. "Emily," she managed. "Emily. That's a beautiful name." He gestured to her shirt. "You're a Tonight Show fan?" Emily's lip trembled. "My daddy was. This was his shirt. He died 3 weeks ago. These were his tickets. He was supposed to be here with me." The studio went silent. 300 people held their breath. "He loved your show," Emily continued, her voice breaking. "He never missed it. He called in 300 times to win these tickets. He was so happy." Johnny felt something shift in his chest. He glanced back at Ed, who was watching with his hand over his mouth. "Your daddy sounds like a wonderful man," Johnny said. "He was," Emily whispered. "Listen to me, Emily," Johnny said, his voice gentle but firm. "I know you're sad. I know this isn't how tonight was supposed to be. But your daddy wanted you to have this experience. He called in 300 times because he wanted you to be here." He paused. "And if we let you leave right now crying, his dream for you doesn't come true." Emily stared at him. "So here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to bring you up here, right next to my desk. You're going to sit in Ed's chair, and you're going to be part of the show tonight. And we're going to make sure that wherever your daddy is right now, he knows his little girl is okay. How does that sound?" Emily looked at her mother. Linda nodded, speechless. "Okay," Emily whispered. Johnny stood and held out his hand. Emily took it, this tiny hand in the hand of the king of late night, and he led her toward the stage. The audience began to understand what was happening. Applause started, quiet at first, then building. If you're feeling what just happened, the moment Johnny chose compassion over comedy, you're exactly where we want you. That's what Johnny Carson Legacy Stories is about. Subscribe now. Johnny helped Emily up onto the stage. He walked her over to Ed's chair, the sacred chair where celebrities sat. "You sit right here," Johnny said. "Ed, you don't mind standing for a few minutes, do you?" "Not at all," Ed said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's all yours, Emily." Johnny walked back to his desk and sat down. "Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny said, his voice carrying weight, "I want to introduce you to someone. This is Emily Harper. She's 10 years old. Her daddy was supposed to be here tonight. He won these tickets by calling a radio station 300 times, but Emily's daddy passed away 3 weeks ago." The audience was completely silent. Emily's daddy never missed The Tonight Show, not once. He loved this show, and Emily loves this show too because her daddy loved it. Johnny paused. "So tonight, we're going to do something special. We're going to make sure Emily's daddy knows she's here, that she's okay, that his dream didn't die with him." Johnny looked over at Doc. "Doc, you know what to play." Doc Severinsen nodded. He turned to the band and counted them off. They began playing Here's That Rainy Day, one of Johnny's favorite songs, a song about loss and memory and the things we carry with us. Johnny stood up, walked over to Emily, and sat on the edge of Ed's desk right next to her. "Your daddy can hear this," Johnny said softly. "Wherever he is, I promise you he can hear this, and he's proud of you for being brave enough to come here tonight." Emily cried. But these were different tears now, healing tears. As the song played, 300 strangers who'd come to laugh found themselves crying instead, the kind of tears that come when you witness something real. When the song ended, Johnny helped Emily down from the chair. Before she went back to her mother, Emily hugged Johnny Carson. Not a polite hug, a real hug, the kind you give someone who's just saved you from drowning. "Thank you," Emily whispered. "Daddy would have loved this." "I know he would have," Johnny replied. "And Emily, he's proud of you for being brave." During the commercial break, Johnny asked a production assistant to bring Emily and her mother backstage after the show. When they arrived, Johnny gave Emily 2 things from his desk. First, a pen he used for signing autographs, engraved with the Tonight Show logo. He signed it, "For Emily and Robert Harper. Your dad had great taste in TV shows. With admiration, Johnny Carson." Second, he gave her a cue card from that night's monologue, the very joke he'd been telling when he stopped to notice her. "This is the moment everything changed tonight," Johnny said. "Keep it. Remember that your dad's love changed this show." Then he made her a promise. "Emily, every year on March 8th during my monologue, I'm going to tell a joke and dedicate it to your father. So you'll always know that someone remembers him. Okay?" "Okay," Emily said, clutching the pen and cue card. Johnny kept that promise for the next 9 years, until his retirement in 1992. Every March 8th, Johnny would pause and say, "This next joke is dedicated to the memory of Robert Harper, who understood that laughter matters." Emily always watched. Emily Harper is 41 years old now. She's a grief counselor in Los Angeles, specializing in helping children who've lost parents. On her office wall hang that pen and cue card, framed alongside the letter her father received saying he'd won the tickets. She still wears her father's shirt on March 8th every year. Still too big, still faded, still the most valuable thing she owns. "My dad gave me the Tonight Show," Emily says now, "but Johnny Carson gave me permission to grieve and still find joy. He showed me that my dad's love didn't die with him, it just found new ways to reach me." Johnny Carson died in 2005, 22 years after that March night. When Emily heard the news, she wrote a letter to his widow, Alexis, explaining what Johnny had done for her. A month later, she received a reply. Alexis wrote, "Johnny remembered you. He remembered that night. He said it was one of the moments he was most proud of in 30 years of television. Thank you for reminding me that my husband's greatest gift wasn't making people laugh, it was making people feel seen." That's what Johnny did that night. He saw a hurting child and decided she mattered more than the show, more than the schedule, more than anything else. He stopped everything to make sure a 10-year-old girl knew she wasn't alone, and in doing so, he gave her something more valuable than laughter. He gave her permission to heal. On March 8th, 1983, Johnny Carson stopped his monologue for a crying little girl. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story, but he saw her pain, and he chose to stop. That's what happens when you stop for people. You don't just change one night, you change a lifetime. If this story reminded you what kindness looks like, keep this channel close. There are more moments like this, moments when Johnny Carson stopped being a host and became something greater. Because on March 8th, 1983, Johnny Carson saved Emily Harper. And 30 years later, she's still saving others with the gift he gave her that night, the knowledge that love doesn't die, it just finds new ways to reach us.